Mia. We have one more speaker, David Shinder. David hails from Southern California, and he's known as a guru in the area of workforce development. He does a lot of speaking engagements around the West, and let's welcome him. Thank you.
So as I get situated, this is my routine here. The cell phone comes out because it weighs too much and it tells me what time I'm starting. Reading glasses come out so I can see what my notes say. My watch comes off so I can keep track of the time, and I'll try to leave my clothes on, but sometimes some of those end up missing as well. So as I get started, I have one word for you all, and that is wow. As we went around the room and you guys were sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your priorities, your strategies with regard to workforce development, some of the things we can do to attract employees, I couldn't help but think to myself that you really touched on some of the key and critical issues with regard to workforce development today. And it made me think, well, those are some of the same thoughts I had in terms of preparing this presentation. So with that, I thank you. It's been lovely. I appreciate it. So a couple of other things. So if you have an extra one of these, don't throw it out. I like to send them to my mom afterwards, so she believes I actually do have a way of making a living. And I do have to share with you, before I dig in, something that made me chuckle from my table over there. It's when Josh apologized for deviating from our discussion. Let me assure you, I will do nothing but deviate from the discussion. I have the inability to get to the point. Okay, so with that, I do want to share with you that my presentation today is mostly geared towards business people. If you're a business person, consider yourself one, put your hand in the air. Okay, so it's a good percentage of those in the room. I figured with a chamber-sponsored event of this type it would be. But I'm speaking really to everyone, because no matter what you do, you play a very, very important part in workforce development. You're a member of the workforce. Oh, there's my presentation. I wasn't sure about the green, and now that I see it on the screen, I'm absolutely certain I hate it. So, but you know, I mean, you give these things a shot. So I want to start out by thanking our sponsors, and I have a personal connection to our sponsors. So the key sponsor for this morning's event is the San Luis Obispo County Workforce Development Board, and they're a customer of mine. So this is a shameless shout out to my friend Don Bollinger right here. Don, hands up. And you might be surprised to know I also have a personal, deep and abiding love and admiration for our breakfast sponsor, Justin. And I'm not just blowing smoke. So no, this photo is not from the winery. This was taken in my kitchen on Monday morning. And so I will have you know, you North Countyites, that this is but a small portion of my Justin stash. I make it up here to North County all the time to buy wine. So I have a number of passions in life. Wine is chief among them. So anyway, thank you. And so, you know, I do have to tell you, being here in North County, for me is very exciting. It actually incites my hero worship. You might think, well, how could that be your hero worship? Well, think about this. It's our passions that really define who and what we admire. So thinking about our heroes, if you were a sports fan, meeting Joe Namath might just be the quintessential moment of your life. If you were a movie buff, having the chance to come across and meet Tom Hanks might be for you your defining moment. And well, if you're me, hero worship, one and all. Okay, so sticking with the program. So I know what you're thinking right about now, because this happens every time I reach the podium. Who are you and what's this all about? Well, you know, that's a really good question, because at the end of the program, I'm really aware that your patience for speakers becomes less and less and less and less. So some of you already have grabbed your cell phones and started Googling my name and perhaps my criminal history, etc. Others of you weren't sure what my name was, so you're turning to the person next to you and saying, did he say his name was David Schwimmer? And to which your seatmate might reply, no, I hope not. He looks terrible. What happened to all that Friends money? Won't buy any Botox? And then you might start to turn to the person on the other side of you and say, oh, no, he said his name was Shinder like in the movie. Okay, and then there's others of you who are just looking for the exit, and I understand that. Okay, we're late in the program. So you ask, what's our agenda? Well, thank you for asking. Here we're going to really focus on 3 things today. The first of which is understanding workforce development. So I'm sitting next to Lorelei, and she and I were chatting earlier, and I said, during our discussion today, I'm going to define workforce development. And she said, well, I'm glad because nobody's ever really been able to define it for me. And so I'm going to do that for you this morning. You're welcome. Okay, the next thing we're going to take a look at is this notion of the full employment economy. And here's my premise. It's a game changer. And in terms of workforce development, in terms of hiring, in terms of recruitment, in terms of wages, in terms of things that matter to every single one of us in the room. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is your playbook, finding talent in not just a full employment economy, but any economy. I got to tell you, this notion of your playbook about the new economy is the gift that just keeps on giving. I was driving, I think, between Fresno and Merced one day, and I thought, I've got a topic for a workshop, and I just keep talking about this and talking about it. I don't understand why people keep inviting me back, but they do. I'm going to Atlantic City and speaking on this in a few weeks. So I guess the full employment economy is a notion that a lot of people are thinking about. So before we dig in, I do have something to get off my chest, and it's a little embarrassing. But I need to do this. So let me say this to the mayor, to the mayors who were up here, to the other speakers. It's been an honor to share the podium with you. To Governor Newsom, he's here, right? You were here in the room? Okay. To everyone who's taken the podium, it's been a real honor. And it's especially been a privilege for me to get to kind of co-keynote today with my friend Josh from the BW Partnership. I mean, really, it's an honor. But again, I need to get this off my chest. I think in having him up here before me, the chamber may have violated the terms of my contract with them. And well, let's just all get through this together. So here's the excerpt from my contract. It reads, the party of the first part chamber agrees that under no circumstances will it infringe upon the vanity of the party of the second part Shinder by allowing a co-keynote speaker to upstage him by virtue of being smarter, being younger, having a more interesting presentation, or bearing a striking resemblance to acclaimed British actor Jason Statham. I present to you, Exhibit A. There you go. And here you are. I mean, Jason Statham is so good looking that in the film The Italian Job, he actually played a character called Handsome Rob. There you have it, okay? No, but really, all kidding aside, Josh has incredible credentials, and that's why he's able to talk to us about things like this. He has undergraduate and graduate degrees in economics. He's able to talk to us about really complex issues like stats and math and numbers, etc. I, on the other hand, have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Spanish literature and can talk to you about this. El ingenioso hidalgo Don Quixote de la Mancha. You know, I love being up here. I loved, driving from the airport in San Luis Obispo up here because I get to practice my schoolboy Spanish and my accent when I'm reading the traffic signs as I'm driving through Paso Robles y Atascadero. I'm marking my path through San Francisco y Salinas. So that for me is always a pleasure. Hey, by the way, sometimes when I do these presentations, I carry $20 Starbucks gift cards in my pocket for those of you who can answer questions correctly. Today I don't have any. But I still have a question, and you're going to get a shout out for whoever has an answer to this. The city of Atascadero, the word Atascadero means what in Spanish?
Land of many waters.
I have a degree in Spanish literature. Atascadero means bog. I guess that could be the land of many waters. Where do you guys get this stuff anyway? Okay, without further ado, I promised you an agenda. Remember, I said I will do nothing but diverge from the topic, so you'll forgive me in advance. But understanding workforce development. Again, as Lorelei and I were talking about, it's not something that all of us can put a definition to. So what is this? Well, I would posit the following, that workforce development is a discipline that attempts to enhance local and regional economies and prosperity by focusing on preparing people to meet the needs of business and industry. That is a definition, ladies and gentlemen, I invented myself because after 30 years in this business, I couldn't find one that satisfied me. So again, you're welcome. Okay. Or more simply, I'd like you to think about it this way, particularly if you're a business person. Workforce development is what we do to develop the workforce. Well, what does that mean? It means some of the things you shared during our table discussions here. It has to do with training. You know, training takes so many different forms and formats. There's so many different modalities from training, from the type of training that our friends in the school system do. Betsy DeVos, she's here, right? She's in the room. No? Okay. To the type of training that businesses do on site. It has to do with orienting our workforce, to increasing the awareness of our workers about the requirements of jobs. It has to do with evaluating workers, doing an assessment of their progress and providing them useful feedback. It has a lot to do with coaching, with guidance, with mentoring, with being that voice of experience for other workers in the workplace. It also has to do with goal setting, particularly around skill advancement. And I would offer for your consideration that it has to do with continuous improvement. Workforce development is the never-ending strategy. It continues and continues and continues. And that would apply to the workforce in general. And I think if we stop and think about it for a minute, it applies to each and every worker. So one of the things I wanted to ask of you today is, did you know that your tax dollars fund a public workforce development system? So it's out there, and our friends at the U.S. Department of Labor really have this to say about that, and I'll paraphrase. So our workforce development system is this network of public agencies, some of them federal, some state, some local, who work together to help businesses achieve their goals with regard to skills development, to hiring, to sourcing workers, etc. And the system exists to help businesses find qualified workers to meet both their present and their future workforce needs. So I wanted to discuss for just a moment what this looks like here, not here on this podium, but here in San Luis Obispo County and in the North County. It includes the work of the Workforce Development Board. So your board here, your Workforce Development Board, receives federal funds through the state of California to do things like operate career centers, where places that job seekers can go to find out about the priority sectors in the region, to get some job coaching, to be connected to training, etc. It also includes all of our partners from the education system, from the community college to adult education to even colleges, four-year colleges and universities. It also includes other public agencies like our State Employment Development Department, our Department of Rehabilitation, and others. So this public workforce system is really designed to work with business and industry to develop the workforce, workers in communities, to meet the specific talent needs for those businesses. So with that thought in mind, I'm going to now declare you all honorary workforce development professionals, and we can move on to the next topic. There you go. You have your definition. This is where I really want to start honing in on our topic for the day, which is the full employment economy and how businesses can approach recruitment, skills development, etc. My position is it's a game changer. So I'd offer the following for your consideration, and I do so with some trepidation because I'm going to start to wade into the pool of economics a little bit, and Josh is in the room, so I really shouldn't do that in his presence, but here goes. So over the next 5 to 6 years, the anticipated normal level of the unemployment rate, in the absence of any major shocks to the economy, is projected by the Federal Reserve to be between 3.7 and 4.5%. That's still pretty low. Now, Josh shared with us his thoughts about, a pending recession. It's not if, it is when. But some of the people who do some forecasting predict that that our unemployment rate is still going to be fairly low. I have to tell you, I have been doing what I do, which is workforce development consulting, for nearly 40 years. And I've been through a lot of recessions. I was the Reagan recession, Bush recession, baby Clinton recession. Not that the baby had a recession, but, and it's generally been considerably higher than this. I would also point out the obvious, that a decade ago, during the Great Recession, in October of 2009, our national unemployment rate was around 10%. That is a shockingly high unemployment rate, and it's important for us to keep that thought in mind about when that occurred. High unemployment lingered well beyond the official end date of the recession. Now, I don't have a degree in economics, and I'm really not that smart, but I have been around for a long time, and I will tell you this. I have never seen a recession like the Great Recession. Here, as a workforce development professional, is my experience around recessions and workforce, is that we have a recession, hiring slows, hiring stops, unemployment rises, and then we begin to see recovery. And in a fairly short order, what we see is hiring happening again. Well, high unemployment lingered well beyond the official end date of the recession, and virtually everyone agreed that coming out of the Great Recession, we saw something that we had never seen before, and that was that higher than average unemployment, less demand, and more supply was around for years and years. It was actually several years after the official end of the recession before we started to see anything dynamic in terms of an increase in employment and hiring. So I would tell you this. More recently, I've been asked, as a result of a variety of projects I've been working on, to describe for my customers what the full employment economy is. There have been murmurs of this for a few years, and now that murmur has grown to a thunderous roar. There is a full employment economy, and it's affecting the ability of businesses to find and hire qualified workers. So I took on the task of trying to find a simple, straightforward, not too technical answer to the question, what is the full employment economy? And I stumbled across one. So according to economist J.L. Zagorski of Ohio State University, various data officially signal arrival at full employment. I do want to point something out. Dr. Zagorski likes to use the middle initial L to distinguish him from all the other PhD economists who share the name J. Zagorski. So we're talking about the L. Just keep that in mind. We don't want to confuse him with anyone else. Okay, he suggests the following. Okay, this is a little wonky, not for Josh, for me. So bear with me. That the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is out of the U.S. Department of Labor, reports unemployment nationally is currently under 4%. That's quite low. Again, we're getting at the definition of a full employment economy. The unemployment rate calculation, just so you know, that calculation includes anyone 16 plus that is actively searching for work, which means students, retirees, and others not in the labor force are excluded. That's one of the things you should know about the unemployment rate. It doesn't take in everyone. It's only those over 16 who are actually part of the labor force. To the average person, the idea of full employment usually means that everyone is working, which would imply a jobless rate of essentially zero, and that has never, ever happened. That's not possible. Even in a fully employed economy, there'll be some people who sit it out. And essentially, the idea of full employment is that so few workers are available that companies begin raising wages and offering other incentives to attract them. I sense that's the case in this county based on some of the remarks you made earlier, and certainly on the data, whoops, skipped one, the data that Josh presented to us. So, economists technically define full employment as any time the country has a jobless rate equal or below what is known as the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, NAIRU. I have no idea what that means. We can look to Josh in the corner for that. Well, I know what it means because it is the following. Its estimates of the measure are based on the historical relationship between the unemployment rate and changes in the pace of inflation. If unemployment is below this number, the economy is at full employment, and businesses cannot easily find workers, and inflation and wages typically rise. And if not, there are too many workers and inflation remains low. So NAIRU nationally is currently a little above the employment rate, which means the U.S. is technically at full employment and wages are rising. So you have in your head right now the obvious question, what does this all mean to me? Well, let's take a look at unemployment in the county. Just in the last few months, the months of 2019. So starting in January, 3.5%, 3.2% in February, March 3.3%, April 2.7%, May 2.4%, June 3.0%, and July 3.2%. I cited my source here, already having given you the disclaimer that I'm not good with numbers. But I would remark this, that these numbers are incredibly low. So to answer the question, what does this all mean to me? I think Whoopi put it best. Molly, you and Danger Girl. So, with very few workers available, I wrote myself a note here which looks extremely interesting, but I can't read it. Oh, yes. So with very few workers available, I'm going to suggest to you that there are a number of strategies that businesses, those involved in economic and workforce development, can deploy. So that's why I'm going to provide you your workforce playbook, finding talent really in any economy. So here for your consideration is David's top 10 recommendations. Here we go. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. Those are the top 10 Davids, not the top 10 from David's list. It's a good-looking group of Davids up there, don't you think? I like them. If you know who all of those people are, you have way too much time on your hands. Okay, here's the real David's top 10 strategies in a demand-driven economy. Strategy 1. And you guys will recognize these because many of them are what you shared after your exercise a little earlier. Consider non-traditional candidates. I have to tell you, I put this at number 1 because it is the one strategy that is working for my customers, and it's working for the businesses that they're dealing with. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about justice-involved individuals. I'm talking about formerly incarcerated ex-offenders. Let me share this. I have a customer which is the training arm of the hospitality union in Los Angeles and Orange counties. This is not a small union. This is a union 35,000 members strong. And they represent businesses such as the Los Angeles Bonaventure, the Regent, well, it's no longer the Regent, it's the Millennia Beverly Wilshire Hotel, the one in Pretty Woman. They represent the Beverly Hilton, the Ritz-Carlton, all the stadiums, etc. And I can tell you the general managers of those hotels just a few short years ago were not interested in seeing formerly incarcerated individuals in their hospitality environment. My customer, the Hospitality Training Academy of Los Angeles, is now training whole cohorts of people right out of prison, and those same general managers and HR managers are interviewing them before they complete their culinary program. There is such a shallow pool of talent available in that labor market, as we've discussed in this one as well, that they're entertaining whole new groups of candidates. So justice-involved individuals, English language learners. Language acquisition is a continuum of skills development, and we don't have to give someone a test to deem them fully fluent in English before they can add value to the workplace. So more and more of my customers are hiring individuals who are learning English rather than those who are fully fluent. Individuals with disabilities, this is a really, really untapped resource in California, and I think for two reasons. I think because the workers themselves have tended to opt out, depending on the nature of their disability, from employment, feeling that there were few opportunities for them, and businesses were unaccustomed to making some of the accommodations necessary to have these workers in their business environments, and some of those accommodations are really small and very easy to achieve. Here's a group near and dear to my heart: older workers. Here's a shameless plug as well. I'm doing a presentation at the Meeting of the Minds conference next Wednesday afternoon. It's in Monterey, and it's sponsored by the California Workforce Association. And this presentation, or that presentation, is on the aging workforce opportunities and challenges. And I have to tell you, while everyone is talking about the effect of millennials on the workforce, virtually no one is talking about the dramatic increase in labor force participation by older workers like myself. I don't know that I'm ever going to retire, A, because I can't afford to, and B, because, I should have mentioned I live in Palm Springs, it's very pricey there, and B, because I really love what I do. But older workers are a tremendously untapped resource. One of the things that Josh shared with us is we have an inordinate number of individuals who are, beyond the age of 54 in this county. So I think that could be the answer to a lot of hiring needs for some businesses. So that's strategy one. Strategy two from David's top 10 list is build talent from scratch. I was very interested to hear comments in this vein from the tables when you did your report out. I'm going to pull these all up at once here because they're all part of the same puzzle. So I'm a big proponent of work-based learning for individuals and companies where that's a viable strategy. Work-based learning is where the business becomes the trainer. If you cannot find them, then build them, is the notion here. So if you were to work, for instance, with the Workforce Development Board of San Luis Obispo County, one of the things you would learn about them is that they have funding to support a variety of these activities, including things like on-the-job training, where their staff could work with your HR staff, or just with you if you're a small business with a few employees, to customize a training plan to train somebody in the workplace where you or your workers are the trainers. Apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are, as the U.S. Department of Labor likes to call them, the other college degree. Josh talked about those Tier 2 jobs and how they've disappeared. Registered apprenticeship programs are one of the best ways to prepare people for Tier 2 jobs. And if you have Tier 2 prepared workers, you can attract Tier 2 industries to your local area. Internships, work experience, and transitional jobs are training modalities where federal programs will actually pay to put a worker in your business and pay their wages while they're learning skills on the job. That's a win-win situation because they're building a resume and you're getting more hands on deck. And then customized training is a modality, again, where businesses work typically with a higher education to customize curriculum that is then delivered in the workplace. Strategy 3, my talent from reliable vendors. So in any labor market, businesses typically recruit on their own. I remember when I first got into this business in the last century, my favorite day of the week and my most busy day of the week was Sunday. Care to guess why? Watching football. That might have had something to do with it, but that was the day that the Sunday paper made the big thump on the driveway. And what was in the Sunday paper? The want ads, the classifieds, right? And that's how businesses tended to look for work. And nowadays, businesses tend to look for employees where? Online. We look for a lot of things online. Sometimes love, sometimes employees, discount coupons for wine. But there are organizations that are well situated and have the resources to partner with businesses, and they include organizations like the Workforce Development Board that I spoke of earlier. The State Employment Development Department receives Wagner-Pizer funds. These are funds that were established to create a labor exchange between workers who need jobs and businesses that have them. All of our education partners, adult schools, community colleges, the universities, are producing the workers that you need. And then, of course, in any local labor market, there are others. There are apprenticeship programs, there are private staffing agencies, trade schools, et cetera, that have the talent that you need. So relying on these vendors, if you will, I think is a pretty remarkable strategy. Strategy number 4, I suggest that businesses, to the extent possible, look to grow talent from within. One of the ways that you can do that is through training your incumbent workers. California has a program that all businesses who pay into the Unemployment Insurance Fund contribute to. It's the State Employment Training Panel program, and that provides funds for businesses to upskill existing employees. The programs run by the Workforce Development Board can also be used in part to provide training to existing employees to increase their skills to take on more complex tasks so your business can remain viable, competitive, and be poised to grow if that's your objective. Training reimbursements is another way that you can grow talent from within. So if your business is not one that is prepared to serve as trainer, think about encouraging employees to get training from the community college, from adult education, and reimbursing the costs of that training. It really is a very, very small investment when you think about what the results could mean for your company. Look for opportunities for promotion, to promote workers from within. You want workers to, we've talked a little bit this morning about how do we recruit workers. Well, maintaining workers in kind of this very competitive, pilfering environment of stealing, workers from one company to the next is an important strategy. And another thing is to look to backfill talent. So as you promote one worker, a worker from a lower level can then move into that position. Strategy number 5, one that is near and dear to my heart, is developing public partnerships with the Workforce Board, with education, and with some other partners that you might not think of right off the bat, like with the Probation Department. So the Probation Department is looking to ensure that individuals who were their former customers do not return as future customers. So one of the things they're looking to do pretty quickly in terms of ending that relationship is to make sure that folks have a job. And the Probation Department can be a really great partner with you. I would tell you this, that the state of California has made a major investment of over $30 million in something called the Prison to Employment Initiative. Some of those funds, 5 you tell me, okay, it's like being on Sesame Street, have made an investment in that. Child Support is another agency, but I'm going to save that for another time. Strategy number 6. Build a pipeline. This is where you work with public education to get them to concentrate on the needs of the growth and priority industries in this region. So if we need to be training more people for healthcare, the high schools, colleges, et cetera, are constantly training those people because we've projected it. In many areas where I work, there are initiatives in place to start increasing career information at even the middle school and grade school level. Collaborate with your competitors is my 7th recommendation in terms of a strategy. So in many places, in many places in California, workforce boards, county boards of supervisors, other agencies have formed industry partnerships where competitors literally gather in the same room with their counterparts from education and from the workforce system to develop strategies around hiring, around training, around recruitment, et cetera. So while businesses that compete with one another in the same sector don't tend to work together closely, Working together on solutions to increasing the workforce can be very effective. Strategy number 8, rethink requirements. Let me just pull these up and share with you a quick anecdote from a meeting last week. So I'm in the Central Valley, Madeira, and I'm meeting with a group of business people, and we're talking about workforce development. And a gentleman from a manufacturing company was talking about they were completely unable to fill the most entry-level jobs, like custodial jobs in this manufacturing company, because they had a requirement that every applicant must have a high school diploma. And after months and months and months of not being able to fill those jobs, they literally changed the requirement. So I'm not suggesting that that is necessarily the best long-term strategy, but if in your workplace, reducing requirements to a level where people can be hired and then attain the credential works for you, it's something you might want to consider. I heard a lot of this from around the room during your report outs. Make work accessible. Consider modified work hours. You know, just the ability to work fewer hours in the office and more hours from home can bring more candidates to the workplace. Consider job sharing, where 2 people can together on a part-time basis fill a full-time job. Transportation and childcare are perennial problems for workforce development. They're perennial problems for job seekers. They're perennial problems for businesses who lose workers or don't see applicants because they don't have transportation and they don't have childcare. We talked earlier, Josh did, about some of the bigger problems, and the mayors, et cetera, about housing, et cetera. But these are 2 areas where employers or groups of employers can come together and develop strategies that will enable greater workforce participation among people who are not looking for work because they don't have those services. And strategy 10, broadcast your assets. So let me pull these up. You guys mentioned a lot of these: workforce environment, wages, benefits, accessibility, and what I called uniqueness, but the mayor called vibe, and I love that. And I'm going to do the glasses shtick at my next presentation, I assure you. I loved that. It was absolutely the coolest thing ever. But no matter what your business is, and if you're a small business owner and you're just thinking, I can't keep raising wages, think about how you can compete for those very few candidates in this really shallow pool of talent. Maybe it's your vibe. You know, I would work at Justin, wink, wink, wink. Do you like older workers? Here's some takeaways. 1, every business needs to embrace workforce development. I gave you a definition. You know what it is now. You have your honorary degree in workforce development because it's important. Whether it be a full employment economy or a less competitive economy, businesses need to be involved in developing the workforce. You need to identify and take advantage of local workforce programs. We heard about apprenticeship programs, career technical education, et cetera. You need to look at the talent pool through a new lens. Consider workers you might not have considered in the past. You need to invest in your workforce, whether that means training them yourself, paying for schools to do so, or other investments. And finally, you need to recognize really that you are your own greatest asset in terms of building a skilled workforce. I went a little long only because I love you so much. Thank you. Cheers. It's been a pleasure.